Everyone, you are looking at a live view of Falcon Heavy on historic Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. We are awaiting liftoff at 8:26 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome to our live webcast of the Viasat3 America's mission from SpaceX headquarters here in Hawthorne, California. My name is Atticus Videra, and I'm a propulsion engineer here at SpaceX. I'm super excited to be here with you today, bringing you live coverage of our second Falcon Heavy mission this year and our second launch of just the day today. As you might be able to read on the fairing, our customer today is Viasat, a global communications company that's developing the ultimate communications network to power high-quality, secure, affordable, and fast connections to enhance the lives of people all over the world. Our main payload today, ViaSat3, is one of 3 satellites that will make up a constellation. It's expected to be the world's highest capacity satellite and will be the largest all-electric satellite ever to be launched. In addition to Viasat3, we also have 2 secondary payloads on board the second stage. Those 2 payloads are Astranis' first micro-geosatellite and Gravity's CubeSat, Gravity Space 1. Both are scheduled to deploy after Viasat3, which will be a few hours after liftoff. And we'll have more about those secondary payloads just a little bit later in the webcast. Now, it's worth noting that today we do need a lot of extra performance to help deliver our passengers to their final destination in a geostationary orbit high above the surface of the Earth. In order to do this, we will not be recovering the side boosters or the center core, and instead we will be burning the fuel that we typically use for landing the boosters. You'll notice there at the bottom of the rocket on your screen, we have actually removed the landing legs as well as the grid fins. This helps us get just a little bit of extra performance by saving mass. We will be lighting our Merlin vacuum engine 3 times today, and that last burn will take place at around the T+4 hour and 20-minute mark into flight. And deployment of our payloads will begin shortly after that and wrap up about 25 minutes after the start of payload deploy. That makes our mission for today just under 5 hours long. Now, at T-minus 13 minutes and 30 seconds, all systems are currently a go for an on-time liftoff. The vehicle is nearly fully loaded with propellant. The range is green and ready to support. Now, if for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at the same time. Now, at just about 13 minutes and 10 seconds until launch, let's take a closer look at the Falcon Heavy vehicle on your screen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessie Anderson, a production and engineering manager here at SpaceX. Falcon Heavy is essentially 3 Falcon 9 rockets strapped together, which means it can carry much larger payloads. Like the Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy is a 2-stage launch vehicle. The big difference is that the Falcon Heavy first stage is comprised of 3 cores, while Falcon 9 only has 1. Falcon Heavy has 28 engines total. Each one of these boosters has 9 Merlin 1D engines, making for a total of 27 engines across all 3 boosters, and you can see that there on your screen. The 28th engine is a Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage and will power the payload to its final targeted orbit. Altogether, the Merlin 1D engines at the base of Falcon Heavy produce 5 million pounds of thrust. That's equal to 18 747s at takeoff. The engines produce so much power that we don't run them at full thrust all at once until after liftoff. About 3 minutes into flight, the 2 side boosters will separate from the center core. Each side booster has flown before, one booster having flown twice and the other 7 times before. Upon side booster separation, the center core will keep firing for about another minute before shutting down its engines and then perform a standard stage separation from the second stage. Our center core today is flying for the first and only time, and as Atticus mentioned, we will not be attempting to recover our side boosters or center core on today's mission. Now moving towards the top of the vehicle, what you're seeing on your screen, on top of the first stage is the second stage, and after they separate from each other, the second stage will propel our payload to its intended orbit. Now you'll notice some gray paint on the second stage today, and that is to help absorb some of the heat from the sun to keep our fuel warm during the long coast flight. And above the second stage is where our payloads are safely enclosed inside of the fairing. The fairing protects the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. But once we reach the vacuum of space, we no longer need this protection, so we will jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. And we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today with our recovery vessel named Doug.
As I mentioned earlier, today's launch is for our customer Viasat. Viasat3 is the first of 3 satellites that will make up a brand new global constellation. And with that, here's a video further explaining our mission and our payload for today.
Every mission starts with a vision. Ours is simple and powerful. Break new ground in bringing connectivity where it's needed most.
At Viasat, we attack very, very, very hard problems. But the harder the problem, the fewer people that can do that, and the more interesting it is to us.
The story of Viasat as a whole is a great story. We enable connectivity.
We say connecting the world, but that has a number of different meanings depending upon the type of customer you are.
From an end user like you or me sitting at home needing connectivity to do our homework, or to the connected passenger in an aircraft, to the Vice President, the President of the United States.
Our government customers are global customers. They go wherever they're needed, and they want to have the same type of capabilities everywhere they go.
For over 35 years, we've worked tirelessly to get to where we are today, creating satellites with greater capacity to carry more data and handle higher speeds.
We've heard a lot of people say it's impossible to do what they're talking about doing at Viasat. You know, a terabit satellite, it's not going to happen. And so I'm really excited to say that's not true.
In just a few minutes, we will launch the world's highest capacity single satellite into geostationary orbit.
With this launch day, we are entering the Viasat3 era. We have our first one going up over the Americas.
Flight 1 enables us to bring connectivity to the markets here in North America and in South America.
Well, the exciting part of Viasat3 is the fact that it's not just one satellite.
By deploying 3 Viasat-3s, we will have a near global network that can provide services to virtually the entire Earth. One of the features you'll notice is the very large solar arrays. These enable us to generate well over 25 plus kilowatts of electrical power on orbit. That allows us to generate huge amounts of capacity that is then usable on the ground.
The enormous capacity of ViaSat3 isn't worth nearly as much if that capacity is stranded in areas where there's no demand.
Most of the people in the world only live in a very small fraction of the Earth. Yet we still want to be able to connect those people when they move from place to place.
Viasat3 is designed to move our capacity to where the demand is.
Our ability to move that bandwidth around and really service those dense spots, that's what our customers are looking for.
It's not just evolving, it's really like a revolution, making these big leaps in technology, and that's cool.
If you look at the progression from Viasat-1 to Viasat-2 to Viasat-3, Viasat-3 was actually the smallest satellite we've ever built, despite the fact that it's got multiples of capacity.
We took things that were twice the size of a human and brought it down to barely the size of a shoebox.
The satellite design process is no longer buy parts and boxes and hook them up. What we wanted was to invest in technology that can really scale. It's not just a new satellite design, it's a new way to build satellites.
We've had to reinvent all parts of the system.
I want to thank everybody at Viasat for their role in what we're about to do today. And of course, I want to thank our partners at Boeing. We wouldn't be where we are today without their support.
Many of us have spent several years working on this Viasat-3 Flight 1 America's satellite. Today is the day.
With the Viasat3 constellation, billions of people can access more of the world, unlocking opportunity for everyone, everywhere, starting now.
At T-minus 6.5 minutes, the SpaceX team continues to count down for launch of our fifth operational
booster RP1 load complete.
Falcon Heavy flight, and all systems are go. Following a successful static fire on Thursday, April 13th, Falcon Heavy rolled out to the pad with the payload Tuesday night and went vertical several hours later. Before we began the webcast, the SpaceX launch director polled the members of the launch team and got a go for propellant loading and launch. We're currently loading propellant on both side boosters, center core, as well as the second stage. You may be able to hear the live rocket sounds from our launch pad. Those pops and hissing sounds that you hear are from propellant loading, as well as the launch mount and strongback that propellant is flowing through. Falcon Heavy uses two propellants, a refined form of kerosene called RP1 or rocket propellant 1 as a fuel, and liquid oxygen or LOX as an oxidizer. An oxidizer is a type of chemical that a fuel requires in order to burn. The liquid oxygen is chilled below its boiling point so that it has a much greater mass per volume, and so basically we can load more of it into the rocket. Our fuel is RP1, essentially a purified kerosene. It is safe, easily available, and has a lot of history. As a fun fact, the Saturn V first stage flown from this very pad on the moon missions also used liquid oxygen and kerosene. And in addition to these two propellants, we also use the chemical TTEB or triethyl aluminum.
Falcon Heavy tanks are pressurizing for strongback retract.
TTEB is triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane, and that is an ignition source. The combustion of RP1 and liquid oxygen is what lifts the vehicle off the ground, and it's the TTEB that sets the match to the propellant mix.
Next up, that truss structure that you see next to the vehicle, known as the strongback, will start to retract. And in preparation for retraction, those clamp arms,
Retract in progress.
those clamp arms that you see just below the fairing on the second stage, they will open up, and this is to allow the strongback to recline away from the Falcon Heavy and clear its way for ascent. We should be seeing those arms open any second now. As you can see on your screen, those clamp arms are beginning to open. This is in preparation for strongback retraction.
NY booster LOX load complete.
As we mentioned earlier, today's launch marks our second Falcon Heavy flight in just 15 weeks.
PY booster LOX load complete.
And for those of you following along, a lot will happen in the first 4 minutes of flight. First, we will light the two side boosters, followed by the center core. Then about 40 seconds after liftoff, we decrease power on the two side boosters to prepare for max Q, after which Falcon Heavy will throttle back up to full power on the side boosters. 2 minutes into flight, we again reduce thrust on the two side boosters, but this time it's to decrease.
Center core LOX load complete.
Just hearing some good call outs for prop loading. This time it will be to decrease forces on the rocket structure, as the vehicle will now be much lighter, but thrust will be constant. Around 3 minutes into flight, we fully turn off the side boosters with booster engine cutoff, or what we call BECO. The pneumatic separation system on the center core then unlocks the two side boosters and pushes them away. Once clear of the side boosters, the center core throttles up to full power until the center core shuts down with main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, and separates from the second stage around the 4 minute mark. And as a reminder, we will not be attempting to land our side boosters or center core today, as the mission requires more performance. From this point on, very similar to a Falcon 9 mission, the side boosters will be making their way back to Earth for a less elegant water landing. The fairing halves will separate, and the second stage will take the ViaSat3, Gravity Space 1, and Astranis' micro-geo payloads into space. And as we've mentioned before, launch is hard, and Falcon Heavy is no exception.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
We are essentially counting down 3 rockets simultaneously, so our team is going to be conservative in case anything pops up in the last minutes of the countdown. If for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at the same time.
Now with LOX loading complete on the second stage, the Falcon Heavy is now fully loaded with 2.8 million pounds of propellant. We should see some white clouds venting from the transporter erector LOX line in just a few seconds. This is completely normal and part of our closeout process.
Ground gas closeouts.
Following that, at T-minus 1 minute, the vehicle will enter startup. This is when the onboard flight computers take over control of the countdown. Shortly after startup, we should get a call out from our LD or launch director giving the final go for launch. So let's listen into the nets for those call outs.
Falcon Heavy is in startup.
Great news there,
And
folks.
abort.
As you may have heard, there was an abort just called
Launch
over
abort
the
and
nets. Just give us a few moments. We're going to check in with the team and listen to the nets, and we'll see if we can get some additional information to share. If you're just joining us, you might notice that the clock is paused right now. We did just have an abort called out on the nets. We are waiting for some more information to provide an update, so we'll be sure to get that update to you as soon as we can. If you are just joining us, you will notice that the clock is stopped. We did have an abort called at T-minus 59 seconds. We're just waiting for some additional information from the teams to provide everyone with an update. The vehicle and payload remain healthy, and we will provide an update as soon as possible. Again, we did call an abort at T-minus 59 seconds. The vehicle and payload remain healthy. Keep in mind the purpose of the countdown is to help us catch potential issues prior to flight. There are thousands of ways to launch a rocket, and there's only one way that it can go right. Given that, we are overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or vehicle sees anything that just looks even slightly off, they will stop the countdown. Again, the vehicle and payload are in good health, but this will end our launch attempt for today. The next launch opportunity is tomorrow at 8:26 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully you'll all join us. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Flighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange! 125! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct? We don't need any more of these.
Good afternoon. You are taking a live look at the orbital launch mount. A little bit charred, worse for wear, but still there, following the test flight of Starship just a few days ago. At this point, the road closure has finally been lifted, which means the main highway driving past Starbase is officially open, and as a result, that allows our teams in the field to be able to go out, collect their gear, or at least what's left of their gear. We'll have someone with us here, too, to help us break down what broke. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be guiding us through this crazy wasteland today. I'm being joined by Adrian Bile out in the field. Adrian, how's it going?
Going good, Sawyer. I hope you can hear me. There's a lot of people out here, because a lot of people want to see how it looks now. So I hope you can copy me well.
Copy 5x5, and it seems like in chat we're getting a whole bunch of 5x5s as well, so that's good. Also joining us is Alex. How's it going, Alex?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm not out there, but definitely enjoying the looks here of that toasty OLM.
Oh, toasty indeed, yes. And behind the scenes, pulling the levers, pushing the buttons, and bringing the photons to you is Mr. Kevin Michael Reed. So, we are finally allowed out, and we've seen a couple of pictures from our photographers of what it looks like on the ground there, but I'm going to go straight to the source. Adrian, you're out there. What does Starbase look like after you were allowed back past the roadblock?
Oh boy, let me tell you. So we went to the pad at for media at 1 p.m. and then like the road opened at 2 p.m. So we got like 2 peaks already. I'm right now standing next to the orbital launch mount. And yeah, it's let's just say there's a lot of things that are damaged, and it's hard to find things that are not. Like even like the fences and everything are damaged, blown out of their frames. All of the tanks at the orbital tank farm have some sort of like punctures. The pad itself looks rough, but it's standing. The tower looks rough, but it's standing. there are parts of the recondenser system that are just like kind of out of the frame. There's concrete everywhere, like literally everywhere. So yeah, there's definitely, I would say, a few days of cleanup ahead of SpaceX here before this is really fully cleaned up of everything.
Just a few days, huh?
Just a few days, yeah. I reacted the same way.
Oh, man. Well, let's get you guys a little bit of a better idea of what Adrian's talking about with just how much of a desert wasteland this is. I believe we have some video that Michael Baylor shot while he was out surveying the damage, and it may be
boy.
difficult to tell if you are looking at the surface of Mars or Starbase.
Okay, here's the lens. Here's the camera body for that camera. Over here, there's no longer a camera on this tripod. The trigger looks okay though. And then this camera has found its way all the way over here, where I don't know where the SD card is, unfortunately. This is camera parts. This is camera parts. And this is more camera parts. Oh, here's the SD card container. So we're gonna have to look for the SD card. Hopefully I can find that. Okay, here's the lens. Here's the camera body.
Which, of note, the SD card was found by Jack shortly thereafter. So, in 3 separate spots, you had the camera, the SD card slot, and the SD card itself. Alex, what are your thoughts seeing that video?
Well, first of all, I love the comments saying that they missed Michael's voice.
Yeah. I think we all did.
Yeah, he should return for commentary. But anyways, yeah, boy, that's a lot of damage. I guess that's my reaction. A lot of camera gear just destroyed by all the concrete thrown out.
Yeah, as we're speaking, I have my gear set up and getting ready for Falcon Heavy on Wednesday, including my remote cameras, and I'm a little scared, I'll be honest now, after seeing that. So, yeah. I want to quickly thank a few people here. Blake Alexander, thank you for gifting 20 Red Team memberships. Holy smokes, thank you for that. If you were able to get one of those gifted memberships, please make sure you give Blake a huge thank you. And thank you as well to Greg Smith for becoming a PadRat member as well. So, Adrian, being out there and having seen the camera damage firsthand, did it seem like there was any particular areas that you saw that looked like, oh, they might have saved, or cameras placed in this spot did okay, or was it just total carnage?
It was total carnage. There were some cameras that were not hit, to be fair, but that seemed more down to luck that there was no concrete block hitting them. But there was like no particular area that was in any way not affected. It was just throwing a bunch of rocks in a general direction and something might survive that. So yeah, and we are still talking about the outside area, like where we are picking cameras so far is the outside area of the pad. There was also an area inside of the pad. Let's just say at this point in time, I'm not really hopeful about these cameras.
Yeah, that is a good point. And these are still, what, how many meters away?
I would
500
say,
meters?
yeah, I would say about 500 meters. This is like, and there's really, it's carnage everywhere. It's everywhere in the field is concrete. It's hard not to find OLM concrete right now. It's really, it's basically scattered around the area.
Wow. And as we were taking that pan there around the tank farm area, and now right by the bottom of that orbital launch mount, Alex, do you still think that 1 to 2 month back to flight window that Elon mentioned yesterday could be possible?
No, I do not think so. I said yesterday that if they fly again, it's gonna be next year, and I'm mostly sure that's gonna be the case.
Yeah.
To be fair, and just to wait in here, based on what we have seen so far, all of these debris cleanup, that's a matter of days. Just to say, like, just because there's a lot of concrete flying around here, that's a matter of days. I think what will take them time, and I agree with Alex that it might take longer than expected, is more the fact that there's obviously something they need to change about the design here. And the question is, for example, will the metal plate solution that Elon has just talked on Twitter will be enough? Is that and that will take time to install. That will take time to get ready. That will get time to test. So the cleanup here, that's base, no problem. But the overarching changes that need to be done to the system, that might be the time-consuming factor going forward to the second flight test.
I disagree even with a timeline for debris cleanup, because probably the majority of the debris around the important areas are probably going to be cleared within days, but there's going to be debris found for months and months and months. We're still finding sometimes pieces of SN11, and it's been 2 years. So
yeah,
I think there's going to be a lot of debris